Have you ever actually stopped to just really watch something grow?
Oh, you mean like actively pay attention to it?
Right, yeah. Like, I don't mean just, throwing some water at a houseplant every few weeks and checking to see if the leaves are turning brown.
Right. The bare minimum.
Exactly. I mean, truly, deeply observing the actual process of growth. Taking the time to notice the tiny, like, microscopic daily changes.
Which, let's be honest, almost everyone just rushes right past.
Totally. Because we are all simply too busy to look.
Well, it requires a completely different relationship with time, doesn't it? I mean, we're so heavily conditioned by modern culture to just look for the before and after picture.
Oh, for sure. The big reveal.
Exactly. We want that stark contrast of the final result. And because of that, we completely ignore the 1,000 little incremental steps that actually make up the journey in between.
And that lost art of patient observation. That is basically the foundation for our deep dive today.
It's a really fascinating one, too.
It is. We are looking at a very specific, just incredibly detailed digital journal entry. It was published on April 15th, 2026.
Right, so fairly recent.
Yeah, and the source material is, get this, it's part 233 of a series called Notes on Fishkeeping.
Part 233. Just the sheer volume is amazing.
I know. And it's hosted on kianemming.org, which serves as the personal blog of a guy named Ang. And he describes himself as an old software plumber.
I have to say, old software plumber is such a wonderfully grounded way to describe a career in tech.
Right. It just strips away all the, Silicon Valley prestige.
Yeah, it frames it as just foundational, necessary maintenance, which tells you a lot about how we view the world.
It really does. And our mission today for you listening is twofold. First, we're going to explore a very specific biological milestone of a tiny fish that Ang observed.
The Zebra Cichlid.
Yep, the Zebra Cichlid. But then we need to zoom out because we're going to explore the obsessively documented, brilliantly polymathic mind of the author himself.
Because you really can't separate the two. To truly understand the significance of the fish, you have to understand the person who is spending all this time watching the fish.
Exactly.
And I mean, the scale of what this person is watching and tracking and documenting it becomes truly staggering once you start putting the pieces together.
It really is wild.
Yeah.
But okay, let's start by looking closely at this specific biological milestone first.
Let's do it.
So we are diving straight into Ang's aquarium. He's observing this batch of Zebra Cichlids. And specifically, he is tracking their transition out of the fry stage.
Right, and for anyone unfamiliar, the fry stage is basically when they are just these tiny, newly hatched aquatic specks.
Specks is the perfect word. They're barely more than eyes and a tail.
Yeah, very fragile.
Super fragile. So he's watching the move from that fragile state into the juvenile phase.
And what really stands out in his notes here is how he actually identifies this transition.
Yeah, because it's not about the calendar, right?
Exactly. He doesn't rely on the calendar at all. I mean, he notes that the batch is at least a month old, sure, but age isn't the trigger.
So what is the trigger?
The shift is marked by a visible physical manifestation. He observes that some of the fry are finally starting to develop those signature stripes that basically define the Zebra Cichlid species.
Oh, okay. So it's almost like watching a completely blank canvas suddenly get its color by numbers filled in.
That's a great way to put it.
Or I was thinking it's like a kid finally earning their racing stripes. They are visibly leveling up from an infant to a recognizable version of the adult fish.
Yeah, and this physical change serves as the definitive biological indicator for this particular species. Like, once those distinct stripes appear, they have officially crossed the threshold into juveniles.
Which makes total sense.
And the author points out something really interesting about this, too. He says that tracking the developmental growth of zebra and polar parrot cichlids is notably easier than a lot of other fish species.
Just because of the stripes.
Precisely because of these bold, undeniable markings. The fish literally wears its developmental stage on its side.
Oh, that's so convenient.
Right. So the aquarist never has to guess where the organism is in its life cycle. You just look at it.
But wait, I have a question about that, because I was reading through the notes, and if they are from the exact same batch, right, born at the exact same time,
Same batch?
and they're living in the exact same tank water,
Yeah.
why are some getting their bold racing stripes while their siblings are still completely translucent.
That is the million-dollar question in biology.
Like, he mentions that a few of them are stubbornly retaining their tiny, clear fry bodies while the others are moving on. Why is there this massive disparity in such a controlled environment?
Well, it highlights the chaotic core of biological variance, really.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, we have this tendency, especially today, to think of organic growth as a highly structured factory assembly line.
Like a conveyor belt.
Right. We assume, day 30 hits, an internal alarm goes off, and every single fish in the tank gets their stripes simultaneously.
Which sounds logical.
It does. But biology is just messy. It's wildly unpredictable, even within the tightest constraints, like the same genetic batch, identical water temperature, the exact same lighting individual organisms, just process their environment differently.
Oh, so it's down to the micro interactions.
Exactly. You might have some fry that are just slightly more aggressive when the food drops, so they're taking in more nutrients.
Or maybe they just have a different metabolism.
Bingo. You might have others with a microscopic genetic predisposition to a faster metabolic rate.
So the timeline isn't a rigid guarantee. It's just a general average.
Yeah, just an average. And when you look at the broader implications of that variance, it actually explains why his meticulous daily tracking provides so much value to him.
Because it's not a given.
Right. If every single fish developed on a strict, predetermined schedule, observing them every day wouldn't yield any new insights.
Yeah, you would just look at a clock or a calendar to know what stage they're in.
Yeah.
There'd be no point in staring at the tank.
Exactly. But because of this unpredictable variance, the arrival of the strikes acts as a built-in progress bar.
A progress bar. That is such a programmer way to look at it.
It really is. It takes something that is essentially a tiny, chaotic swimming speck and turns it into a trackable, measurable organism.
And, that idea of a progress bar really shifts the focus away from the biology of the fish and onto the person watching them.
How so?
Well, Aang isn't just a passive observer sitting in front of the glass, right? He's making active choices that dictate the speed of that biological progress bar.
Oh, absolutely. And the journal entry actually takes a noticeable turn here. It moves from simple biological observation into something that closely resembles a personal philosophy.
Yeah, a philosophy on growth and time. Because Aang explicitly admits in this post that he holds the power to make these little fish grow significantly faster.
He knows the mechanics.
He does. He notes that if he simply fed them 3 or 4 times a day, their growth rate would speed right up. They would hit that juvenile stage much quicker.
But he doesn't do that.
No.
Yeah.
He actively chooses a slow routine. He restricts their feeding to once or maybe twice a day.
Which is fascinating.
He is entirely aware of the fast track, and he is deliberately choosing the scenic route.
And that choice, it serves as a stark rejection of how society typically approaches hobbies or projects or even personal development today.
It totally feels like anti-hustle culture, but applied to fish keeping.
Anti-hustle fish. I like that.
Right. But think about how counterintuitive his choice is for most of us. Usually as humans, we want to optimize absolutely everything we touch for maximum speed and maximum yield.
Oh, 100%. If you found out you could get a project done 50% faster,
or get a plant to bloom weeks earlier just by adding a little more input, you'd do it without hesitation.
we all would.
We demand the fastest internet speeds, the fastest package delivery, the fastest possible return on our investments.
We always want to skip the awkward middle phases of everything.
Exactly. We just want the result. Yet Aang is looking at his aquarium and deciding to intentionally hit the brakes.
And the self-awareness he brings to this choice is really what makes the note so compelling. I mean, he acknowledges that zebra cichlids are, and he uses his own word here, a bit lackluster.
Right, lackluster.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare them to the more vibrant, colorful species available in the aquarium trade.
Yeah, they aren't the neon flashy showpieces that immediately grab your attention when you walk into a room.
But he still loves them.
He does. Even so, he notes there is something deeply satisfying about their fundamental form and, of course, those bold stripes.
Yeah, he writes this specific line that really stuck with me. He says, watching them grow at their own pace is half the fun.
Half the fun. See, he is optimizing his hobby for the actual experience of observation. He's not rushing toward the final finished product.
Which is such a healthy way to look at it.
It is. There's a deep, quiet philosophy here about finding satisfaction in the mundane. He doesn't require flashy colors to remain engaged.
He finds profound beauty in the fundamental structures.
And the recurring patterns, and in the slow, systematic unfolding of a natural process.
He refuses to rush the fry into adulthood, because the slow, daily process of becoming an adult is the very content he wants to absorb.
Perfectly said.
But, I'm trying to wrap my head around the kind of person who derives that much joy from slowing down a quote-unquote lackluster fish.
Right. What kind of mind is that?
Yeah, so let's look at the broader landscape of qianmeng.org, because when you zoom out from just part 233 of these fish notes, the sheer volume and diversity of his output, it stops you in your tracks.
Oh, the digital ecosystem he has built is vast. It's incredibly complex.
So Ang describes himself as an old software plumber, right? And he says he spends his nights tinkering with free Libra and open source software.
Fall S, as it's known.
Floss, yep. He is deeply entrenched in the open web. He actively supports organizations like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Free Software Foundation, the Tor Project, Wikipedia.
So this is someone who fundamentally understands complex systems, digital privacy, and the unrestricted flow of open information.
Totally.
He represents a very specific type of foundational internet citizen, the kind of person who quietly builds and monitors and maintains the invisible digital infrastructure that the rest of us rely on every single day.
And we do it without a second thought.
Exactly.
But then you look at the sidebar of his blog under the heading Projects, and the breadth of his curiosity is just overwhelming.
It's all over the map.
Naturally, you expect the programming notes given his background. And they are certainly there in heavy rotation. He's got notes on Elixir, Erlang, Python, Haskell, Go, Rust.
All the heavy hitters.
Right. But nestled right alongside those highly technical, abstract programming languages are entirely different disciplines.
Like what?
He has notes on gardening, notes on photography, notes on dieting, notes on home improvement, notes on meditation, and notes on guitar.
Wow. So he applies the same level of rigorous attention to every single facet of his life.
Regardless of whether it's digital or organic.
Exactly.
Just looking at the snapshot of April 2026, he is bouncing directly between notes on Haskell programming part 109.
Part 109. Wow.
Yeah. And his very next post is Notes on Gardening, Part 867, Propagating the Blue Days.
Part 867.
I know. I am trying to understand the correlation here. How does a person transition from the bleeding edge of functional programming in Part 109 to propagating a Blue Days plant in Part 867 without getting, like, mental whiplash?
It sounds exhausting.
Are the plants basically just slow-moving code to him? Is he using the exact same mental muscles for both?
Honestly, that is perhaps the most accurate way to look at it.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if we think about what a software engineer actually does day in and day out, they build, monitor, debug, and document incredibly complex systems. They are constantly evaluating inputs, identifying variables, watching processes run, and measuring the resulting outputs.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
A garden, or a fish tank for that matter, is just an incredibly complex organic system.
Oh, man. He is essentially debugging his garden the same way he would debug a piece of software.
Exactly. An engineer's mind will naturally apply the same rigorous documentation and tracking skills used in complex software architecture to unpredictable things, like fish fry development, or the root propagation of a plant.
That is so cool.
When he is looking at a Zebra Cichlid developing its stripes, he is monitoring the health of a biological system. He's noting the variables.
Like, did restricting the feeding to once a day change the output?
Right. Or did altering the water temperature affect the biological load of the tank? He is applying the strict rigor of computer science to the messy art of living.
So to him, learning a new chord progression on a guitar, or understanding a new paradigm in Haskell, and watching a fish turn from translucent to striped, they aren't disparate hobbies.
Not at all.
They are equal pursuits under the umbrella of just understanding how things work.
It is the ultimate documentation of a lifelong learner. He doesn't compartmentalize his curiosity into work versus play.
That's a great point.
All of these systems require patience, keen observation, and extensive documentation to fully grasp the content of his life, the raw data, the observations, the daily minutiae. That is what he values most.
And to truly grasp the magnitude of Ang's dedication to that documentation, we really need to look at the numbers.
Oh, the numbers are wild.
Because it is not just the wide variety of topics that makes this blog stand out. It is the relentless, staggering volume of output.
The consistency he maintains over a span of years is almost metronomic. It's unreal.
So this blog has been running consistently since July 2011. And if you look at his output for the years leading up to the specific Fishkeeping post, so 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. The math is just wild.
Break it down.
Okay, in 2022, he published 730 posts. In 2023, he published 730 posts.
Wait, 730 is exactly 2 a day?
Exactly 2 a day. Yeah. And in 2024, which was a leap year, he published 732 posts.
Because of the extra day.
Yes. And then in 2025, back to 730 posts.
It is mathematically perfect execution. Exactly 2 posts a day, every single day, without fail, for years on end.
And it gets crazier. In just the first 15 days of April 2026, which is when our Zebra Cichlid post is published, he has already put up 45 posts.
So that's an average of 3 posts a day.
Yeah, and he explicitly notes in his disclaimer that these are his own opinions, entirely separate from any employers. This isn't his job. He isn't being paid to do this.
This is purely a personal passion project.
Which really forces us to examine how we process information in the modern digital age, doesn't it?
It really does.
Because, I mean, is documenting 45 things in 15 days across 10 different disciplines a sign of severe information overload?
It's a fair question.
I look at that much output, and my first instinct is that the guy must be drowning in data. You know, like he's frantically trying to capture every single thought before it vanishes.
And it is so tempting to view it through that lens, especially given our own modern habits with social media and everything.
Right.
But looking at the deeply analytical nature of these posts, I would argue this is actually his specific cure for information overload.
A cure? How so?
Well, we live in an era characterized by endless passive consumption.
Okay, true. For anyone listening, think about your own habits for a second. You probably scroll through hundreds of posts, watch dozens of short videos, and skim multiple articles every single day.
And at the end of the day, how much of that content do you actually retain?
Almost none of it. It just washes over you.
Exactly. But what Eng is doing with this daily documentation is forcing himself to stop passively consuming and start actively processing the world around him.
I see.
When you write something down, even an observation as seemingly simple as noting that a tiny fish got its stripes today, you are moving that piece of information from passive observation into active synthesis.
You are cementing it into your understanding of the world.
Right. You give that information a permanent place to live outside of your own fleeting working memory.
So he's basically externalizing his hard drive so his actual brain doesn't crash from all the inputs.
That is exactly what he's doing. And what makes this archive so refreshing is the complete lack of modern internet performativity.
Oh, right. There's no hustle.
He isn't doing this for viral fame. He isn't monetizing these posts with pop-up ads, and he certainly isn't trying to become a, fish-keeping influencer.
Yeah, there are no prompts demanding that you smash the subscribe button at the end of part 233.
It is content created entirely for the joy of the process.
Just pure curiosity.
He has intentionally separated his professional money-making work from his intellectual pursuits. And in doing so, he has created a personal digital ecosystem where he's allowed to just be endlessly curious.
A quiet sanctuary for his own thoughts.
Away from the noise of the algorithm.
You know, there is a really vital lesson in that archive for anyone listening. You do not need a massive audience or any audience at all, really, to justify documenting your own curiosities.
The act of recording the process is the actual reward.
Yes. The true value of Notes on Fishkeeping, part 233, isn't found in how many unique visitors clicked on the page. The value is that Ang sat down, closely observed his immediate surroundings, and took the time to understand his world just a little bit better than he did yesterday.
It serves as a powerful reminder that the world is infinitely interesting if you are simply willing to pay close attention to it.
So let's recap the journey we've taken through the source material today. We started by looking closely into a fish tank, watching the tiny, translucent fry of a Zebra Cichlid finally earn its biological racing stripes.
A tiny progress bar.
Exactly. We explored the deeply intentional anti-hustle philosophy of slow growth, that active choice to take the scenic route over maximum efficiency because watching them grow at their own pace is half the fun.
A great lesson right there.
And then we zoomed way out to marvel at the sprawling, meticulously documented digital garden of an open-source software developer. A person who treats everything from complex Haskell code to propagating a Blue Days plant with the exact same level of profound respect, rigor, and curiosity.
And I want to leave you, listening, with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day.
What's that?
Think about a specific area of your life right now that you are currently rushing through. It could be a new hobby you're trying to master, a long-term project at work, or maybe even just a mundane daily chore.
We all have those.
Right. What if you actively applied Ang's Part 233 mindset to that specific thing? If you deliberately hit the brakes, slowed your pace, and patiently documented a tiny, seemingly lackluster part of that routine 233 times.
Wow.
What invisible stripes of progress might you finally start to notice?
That is a brilliant question to sit with. Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep observing the little things, keep documenting your own journey, and we'll see you next time.